Yeah. Well, we have assembled a great cast of characters here. Blizzard 93 coverage. I call him Chief Emeritus Meteorologist Wayne Mahar. Meteorologist Peter Hall, who is the stalwart of Central New York at this point, and of course the great Lee Goldberg, who we know affectionately as Lee Mometer, for the name he was granted during Blizzard 93 coverage. Let's start by let's go around the horn a little bit here, and we'll see, 30 years. First of all, Wayne, let's start with you out of deference to your advanced years. Can you believe it's been 30 years? I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
It is hard to believe. It's incredible. I mean, I remember that. I mean, you remember it. We did an hour special on it. I mean, it was several things incredible about it, not the least of which from a forecasting aspect, okay, let alone 42, 43 inches of snow and all the, the longevity and expansiveness of the blizzard of 93, but from a pure forecasting aspect, that was the first time with computer models that you could really grab a storm 5 and 6 days out, see it coming in, and everything was so perfect in alignment with computer models that the Weather Service was issuing blizzard warnings like 2 days out. And I believe, pretty sure that was the first time that far out computer models had done such an incredible job, and it worked out.
Yeah, and that was, that not just the computer models, but also, remember the emergency alert system, or I think it was actually the emergency broadcast system still then, had never been activated. This was essentially a post-World War II convention to be able to alert the public if we were under attack, or if there was a great public emergency. And we have it in our special, which we'll talk about some more, and you can see it on YouTube if you go to CNY Central's, just search on YouTube, Blizzard 93 CNY Central or WSTM. And the emergency alert system was activated Saturday morning, as I recall, because we were doing essentially hourly cut-ins at that point as that snow was just starting. Lee, let's get to you just for a quick thought. You were at Cornell still at the time, right? But you were starting to work here. Was that the first weekend you actually worked here?
I had done some radios for Wayne. We had that courtship at a local Applebee's, I think, and I was hired for precision weather, and we did I was doing my radio shifts, and Wayne said, "Listen, it's kind of all hands on deck coming up this weekend. Why don't you come up and help and see what you can do?" And I believe I don't know if we were in golf coverage on NBC that weekend, but was it Mark Harris at the time? Is that the news
Mark
director?
Harris was the news director. Yeah.
Okay. So Mark and the producers, they send me outside. They said, "Listen, we're going to come to you at some point during the show. So why don't you just go out front and just report on the amount of snow?" Well, I don't know if the golf went into sudden death or they were going through a few holes, but I just got stuck out there. So the next thing you know, I mean, I'm 5 foot nothing anyway. So it came up all, it's just piling up on me throughout the whole thing. And next thing you know, they come out to me and it's actually the recording that probably went out to get me the job right here in New York City. But it was incredible. I mean, listen, I've seen 6 of the top 10 storms in New York City since I've been here, and nothing comes close to that storm. So it's just it was a remarkable few days.
Yeah, Lee, I've got it here. I've got to show your clip here. I'm a little primitive as a director, but let me share the screen. Let's see. You should see it right here.
Oh my goodness, it's just classic. I'm telling you, it was just above my knee when I got out there, and it just kept piling up. No, at that point, Peter and I was studying the weather models in our weather map lab at Cornell, and the reinforcements were called in from Wayne and Syracuse. So I'll always be grateful for that.
Yeah, and we really needed everybody. I mean, Peter, I'm sorry that Wayne didn't bring you up here that day too. But as Lee said, you were at Cornell. You were already, pun intended, knee deep in forecasting and meteorology. It must have been something for you to see, even though you weren't on the air here yet.
Well, that's true. In fact, that storm was before I knew Lee and Wayne through Precision Weather. I knew Lee through Cornell University, but I believe I was at Cornell during that storm, and it was just crazy. You don't expect that amount of snow in many places and that widespread. Yes, you get lake effect, but this was a huge storm from Florida all the way up the coast where you had major storm surge flooding and tornadoes and all the way up here. So to be that early in a weather career forecasting, to have such an enormous type of storm, even if you weren't forecasting, just being in it was you probably don't even understand how unbelievable it was at the time, because I was so young at the time to be like, wow, this is epic, compared to history.
Yeah, and you bring up youth. I mean, it is 30 years ago, and in fact, now I got another screen I got to share with you guys, because speaking of younger back then, here, well, there's that emergency alert forecast that I was telling you, but we're gonna also see. I'll just back this up on the fly. You see Paula Gorell and Tom Hoff. This was the Friday morning before, and then I think Wayne comes up here in a second. There's Wayne in front of our sophisticated maps, predicting a low pressure system I see to be coming up the coast, and then the EBS system there. Yeah. Really incredible to see all of that stuff that was going on. And I actually watched this recently, and Peter, I think you watched most of it recently too. I was just struck by our lack of capability and how much we still did. This was a time when it was, we mentioned it in our special, the phone was ringing all weekend long. We had, whether it was Rocco Carbone or Mike Kearns or people from upstairs who came in who could get to the station, they're answering the phone. Hello, WSTM or Channel 3, and school closing, church closing, shopping mall closing, businesses closing. And this was on a weekend. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. The graphics were essentially typed in manually in terms of the broadcast side. They didn't just instantly appear on the air. And Wayne, you weren't too far removed from a magic marker and a couple of big HLs and sunshines and clouds, So it just goes to show you, I think, and I think this reinforces what we've all done for our whole careers, that the actual essence of broadcasting isn't the technology, that it's actually the communication, the importance of what we're delivering to the public. I really think that as much as anything is what we still do today, even though all those elements, kind of come around and change as we go. I mean, Wayne, you had your career through all of those technological advances and you weathered them, again, pun intended. But isn't that true that really in the end, it's about, you were talking to the viewer, you were giving that mom or that grandma or that dad in their home critically important information that weekend?
Oh yeah, I mean, computer models improve, and they have. Okay, I mean that's all a part of it. The technical side of forecasting, and I'm going to think that Peter and Lee would agree that we've seen improvements there. But the communication aspect of with a viewer, okay, how you communicate, get the various means now, obviously a lot more, better graphics, and you can do a lot more to show a storm system and projected movement and projected snow amounts and all that. We didn't have that back then. Certainly the social media aspect, that's a part of the communication now. Like it or not, it's, we're out there on the social. It's not just the TV anymore, but the internet and all that. But I still think that it's the viewer that gets to depend on the meteorologist at the TV station. It's the viewers watching. It's the viewers getting to know Peter and depending on Peter, and the viewers knowing and depending on Lee. And they've got the experience. They trust the trust aspect because these people have been around and they know that they're good, and and that's the key. And you use other advancements, tools, computer graphics, and the models and all that to help the communication part.
Yeah, but Wayne, you remind me of something else though too, and Lee, you can speak to this. The other element again is the human element of a broadcast television news, or however you want to add digital media to that today. But the teamwork that we had in this building on that weekend, that week, to get the special together, the weekend when the storm is happening. Lee, you were at really perhaps the best local television station in the country now by a lot of measures. I suspect the teamwork there also delivers that product on a nightly basis for the #1 market. Is that still a truism in the business?
No, it's still what makes the shop I'm at now very special. In fact, we have some WSTM alumni up here at this station, and that's the reason why. It's a certain DNA that runs through some of the best newsrooms in the country. I mean, this is obviously not the career description that we all signed up for and all we're doing 30 years ago. But at the same time, at the core, the storytelling is still what makes us. That's what I'll tell our interns. That's still what I bank on to beat the icon in the planner on the app. So, we still overcome that. Maybe we're a little bit more event driven now, where, it's not as much the daily routine, but when the event happens, and there are so many in the supercharged era of weather that we have, they still come to those people who they connect with, and we're still those people. So, it can be overwhelming at times now. I mean, it's intense. It's 24/7, but we still love the core of it. But you're exactly right. It's still the effectiveness in storytelling, and all these models and tools have just, if we can, we've been sort of in this very interesting transition where we've had to adapt, but we're close enough to what it was, and then we're still enough sponges to take it in that we've been able to adapt. I mean, I'm not doing the integrate Snoop Dogg's lyrics into my weathercast like some other weathercasters are doing down south, but I feel like at least I'm still savvy enough in the way the technology has gone to enhance the storytelling. So it's really it's a moving target. And
I guess as a tie-in today back to '93 too, I always have respect for you as meteorologists, and Peter, you can speak to this too. You guys go out there every night. You know what you're talking about. You might have a few prompts in the screen behind you in terms of a graphic support or map or something, but you're going unscripted every day for anywhere from 30 seconds to whatever it takes, 3 or 4 minutes. And one of the things I loved about our coverage on Blizzard '93 weekend was we didn't really write a darn thing down, that we were news people also. We weren't scripted. We were getting information handed to us or told to us in our earpiece, communicating again that directly. Occasionally some writing in what was probably it's still a typewriter, electric typewriter, not even a computer system of some dated like an old Apple II or something. So so I had that respect for you, and Peter, I know that you can have appreciation for that as well, that ad lib and that need to be short, long, expand, accordion, whatever it takes.
And that's the advantage of being a meteorologist who knows their crafts, like Wayne, like Lee, in that you already know, you've spent the time, you did the work on actually doing the forecast, knowing your viewers, knowing your audience, knowing how important those weather aspects are, and compare it to what everybody's used to, meaning the fact that 5-6 inches of snow here is going to be different than 5 or 6 inches of snow in New York City or Atlanta or whatever. So when we know if we need to tamp it down a little bit, if it's not the hugest storm ever, we can say, well, okay, we can compare it to this, or we can say, okay, this one's the big one. Or, we can say, okay, how about what we just had this winter in Buffalo? We had the blizzard there. That was a very localized event, but that turned into being a huge weather story for them. But we were able to ad lib about it, and as Lee and Wayne can too, because we know the science behind it. We've put in the work, and I think that's what can continue to differentiate us if we're doing something on social or on air, that they can trust us as we can guide the viewer along to be able to make sure they understand what the big impacts are. Oh, there's Rob Guarino.
Yeah, I just started rolling the special again because first of all, it's very entertaining.
Yeah, he's a hunk of a guy back then.
Yeah, and then Wayne wearing a tie, which is a historic document that he actually owned one. I suspect, Wayne, that the elbows of your shirts, because you were still powerlifting, I think at that time, might have been a little worn. Is that true?
They always get that problem, holes in the elbows. Many meteorologists do experience that problem.
Yeah, many meteorologists do. That's funny. Let's we've hit wait, hold on. We got another guest calling in.
Hey.
It's Dave Ryan from CBS Sports Network. And Dave, do you have video on your phone?
Of course I do, but how do you do this? I don't
Let's
often
see.
do this. Hi guys, first of all.
You hit the video button. It looks like a camera, I think.
Speaking of adapting to technology.
Right. Right, exactly. And Dave has a particularly fun story. In fact, you know what I'll do, Dave, while we're filling here.
Am I here? No.
I can hear you. I can't see
Where
you.
is I never use my phone for this. I use my laptop.
Lower left.
Yeah, there you go. Lower left. Oh, I see something. No, now you. Well, Dave, while you're working on that, let me go back to sharing a screen, because you guys might remember the Big East.
Yeah.
The Big East tournament that year. And let me see if I can turn up the sound too. Listen to this.
I didn't hear him.
Isn't that great? You guys might recognize that guy. He's the one who retired this week.
Matt,
Dave, Dave, we can't see you, but we can you can talk, right?
Right. For some reason, the phone says I'm driving, but I'm not. I'm standing at an airport in Phoenix, Arizona. So,
well, why don't you just talk to us for a second? We'll look at each other.
I'll talk to you. How are you guys? It's good to see everybody. Oh my gosh, long time.
We got Wayne and Lee Goldberg and Peter Hall, Dave.
I see you guys. For some reason, I'm really not this bad with technology generally.
I could. I might be able to email you on the fly if that helps you. I don't know if it does, or maybe if you were smart enough. Anyway, let's talk for a second, Dave. Tell us
Only
about
a Syracuse grad, not a student.
Tell us about the Big East and New York City. What was Blizzard '93 like during that time?
I just remember, Maddie, the unbelievable amount of snow. House in Camillus. I remember, was it 3 feet? Was it more than that? Was it 4 feet?
Almost 4 feet. Wayne will tell you 42.9, I think, is the number.
Wayne, you look great. Everyone looks great, by the way. But I remember Jim Axelrod talking about the snow at the Big East tournament at the Garden for sure. And his very colorful language about how much snow was in the streets. I do remember covering that event in New York, and cabs were just stuck all over Manhattan. So we're talking about like jackknifed, and they were just abandoned by the cabbies, which I'd never seen before. And I was born in Manhattan, and I've been through, crazy stuff there, but never that much snow. But Jim Axelrod did not think a lot of snow. He wasn't very concerned about it.
No, he wasn't concerned at all. I love some of these clips are just great. You're talking and I'm watching this show. This is Brian Erb's farm. You got to remember Brian Erb, the photog.
Of course, I remember Irby. Who could ever forget him?
And he was up in Sterling, Cuba County, up near Lake Ontario. And this was one of those weekends where we did realize that we had to utilize everybody we could. Like Lee, you came up from Ithaca, right? How was that drive, by the way? Was that easy?
I came up early. Yeah, I made that drive every weekend at 3 a.m. to do the radio shifts from the weather center. So that wasn't too bad. Wayne made a great point. I wanted to just follow up on, because he was talking about sort of the advent of the computer modeling and the whole forecast. The next best storm that was modeled like for a major historic storm that I had in my career was Superstorm Sandy. So it's pretty amazing to sort of bookend the career like that. That's how good that forecast was in '93. Everybody was so excited, I remember, in the Weather Center with the consistency of these new models.
And Peter, even this week we've had one of the easier winters on record for Central New York this year. But this week I shouldn't say just this week. Many times this winter, Peter comes into our afternoon meeting and is trying to hold back the newsroom. Like, listen, the models aren't adding up. The models aren't in alignment. One's diverging, one's going here. It could go north, it could go south. It could be rain, it could be snow. And yet Peter, in the newsroom, we like something a little more solid sometimes.
Well, right. Well, I mean, of course, you get the 6 inches of snow, and that's Snowmageddon, 2023.
Mhm.
Right.
But yes, we try to at least say, okay, here's what it's going to be, or if there are some differences, like actually the thing that's potentially next week coming up Monday night to Tuesday night, that could be one of the bigger storms this season, at least for parts of New England and maybe central or eastern New York. So yeah, we haven't had too many big ones, and the fact that like the storm, like Superstorm Sandy, especially the European for that one, and the 1993 blizzard, obviously that one, the consistency, that's remarkable to have it that far away. That doesn't happen very often. You're right.
And Wayne, it's worth noting that just let's see, 9 months later, 10 months later, we had that January '94 snow burst in the middle of the day that really paralyzed Syracuse almost to some degree. It was different and more intense for a brief period, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that was if you ask the top three, in my career there in Syracuse, 37 years, blizzard '93, Labor Day storm, and that one just months later in '94 when we had almost 10 inches of snow in 2 hours in Syracuse at day on a weekday. And I mean that paralyzed, and that also changed the way the city operated, and some of the rules businesses went by, because it was just massive traffic jam because the snow started coming down hard late morning, and many businesses and government offices at noon on that day, with the snow coming down that hard, said, okay, everybody go home. So everybody tries to go home, and it's 4 inches an hour, and nobody was moving. It was stuck. They were stuck. And I remember living into the station, picking up passengers that had driven off the road on my way in, and going through back parking lots just to try to avoid cars that were stuck in the middle of the road. That was so impressive.
Hey, Wayne, listen. Somebody wrap Wayne, okay? Because I got CBS News Jim Axelrod on the line.
Jim Axelrod, what's up,
Jim
man?
is no better at
gosh, I
technology than Dave Ryan.
Oh my God!
I thought that was the Blair Witch Project.
I'm trying to get my computer
I'm just an announcer, Pete. I'm just an announcer.
I don't know if you guys
I
see
just
this,
talk
but
about sports.
clearly the station hasn't changed. We got 8 minutes left because we haven't upgraded to the pro version of Zoom. So, listen, Jim, you got 8 minutes. I know you can fill 8 minutes.
I need 8.5. I need 8.5.
You got a good piece. Hey, check this out. Can you see? Wait, hold on. See this? Wait, hold on. I gotta go back. Okay. Let this play a second. Jim, Rhino, I see you, but that's probably when you were still off camera. Maybe it was better. I'm not sure.
Oh my God.
Jim, tell us what you remember about Blizzard '93. Let's get right on the record.
Well, I don't even remember what I had for lunch today. So I will tell you though, I remember going off the roof of the station. Oh my God, who is that?
How about that?
What is that black hair?
Well, first of all, it's hair.
It's hair to begin with. My goodness. Matthew, do you remember, I thought it was the roof of the station.
Yeah, I got that. You
drift, right? It's so
I got
high
that.
that we just sort of walk off it. I just kind of went where Masadi told me to go.
That's dangerous.
Which is not good when there's 90 degrees and sunshine. That's dangerous. You can imagine in a blizzard.
By the way, I was in touch with Rick today. He actually doesn't feel well. It's non-COVID illness. Otherwise, he would have been on. He did want me to give you all smooches, which I'm not. I don't know how to do that virtually. In person, I'm good. But listen, Jim, hold on. Let me hit play. See, wait, hold on. We're gonna see first a little bit of Rhino here.
Oh my! Oh wow!
Wow.
Who is
That's
that
before his bar mitzvah.
child?
Now watch this.
What
Watch
am
this.
I
Here we go.
doing?
Jim Dates.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Oh, Daisy.
Here comes the
God,
jumping out of the
Dates.
window.
No. Wow. There he is.
Isn't that great?
That is awesome.
fantastic.
So, wow.
Oh my God, isn't that great?
Is it
Dave Ryan
still,
won't answer because he can't figure out how to turn his phone back on.
Matt, is there a record that's still like, is this 30 years later still the record holder of some sort?
Yeah, Wayne or Peter, you know that, right? It is, isn't it? What Peter
Yeah.
what is the record? Is there a record?
Go ahead, Wayne. Wayne, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Greatest amount of snow in 24 hours, right, Peter?
I would have to double check that because remember we had, well, yes, I was just thinking of a different system, but that was up north. So for Syracuse, yes, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And you know,
Well, just
every
to
year-
interrupt, people would always have this great debate about 66
Yes.
versus 93. And I think the biggest takeaway, besides if you wanted to compare the pressure, you want to compare how big it was across the country, I think it was the fact that in 66, the infrastructure to remove the snow was not as good as 93.
Mhm.
Obviously, in 2023, it's even better than 93, but I just think that the amount of plows that we had in 93 was more than in 66. So that they were probably able to get rid of the snow faster was probably why people think 66 was worse than 93.
Yes,
That's just my thought.
and that here's a couple other things. One, 66 was weekday, and 293 was weekend, as we know,
Mm.
because we were there, and it was in March when, I don't know, maybe by Wednesday, Thursday, we could see grass on the ground again, because we also, that spring, and Jim, you probably remember this too, we end up covering flooding along Oneida Lake in large amounts because of the 193 inches of snow, I think, and the melt off from Blizzard 93.
Mhm.
So it led to kind of a series of interesting weather events, including then that January snowburst of 94. I mean, when I say led, they fell in sequence, not necessarily one caused the other, obviously. That would be
Mhm.
absurd to think that. But Lee, you mentioned Sandy in New York, that for this community, this was an equivalent. Although, who was saying this? And maybe it was, I don't know, maybe you've been just like a podcast guy or something. What would you rather have as your disaster? Kind of a strange question, but there's fire, there's flooding, there's snow, there's hurricanes. And really, having a lot of snow, not that bad.
How
if
bad
they're
was the
smart-
loss of life? How many dead?
Jim, I don't recall, and even looking back at our special, which ends up being sort of the living document, I don't recall there being snow-related deaths that weekend. I suspect by Monday, an emergency room probably had somebody with a heart attack or two, the shoveling type of thing, but there wasn't any of that like Buffalo had this year, that sort of entrapment type, you're trapped in your house without heat and so on for a week. So I think Wayne, maybe you can speak to this just a touch. The season, the time of year, yes, the storm can happen. The lake was warm enough for lake effect snow to come around, but it also was a situation where the melting and the spring was coming. It wasn't starting in December, right?
Yeah. Just to backtrack a little bit, amount of the number of dead from the storm. Actually, most of the deaths occurred down south when the severe weather came through with
Mhm.
the tornadoes, and I don't know what the number of those that perished up due to snow technically, but I know the numbers. I think it's 202 that had perished related to the storm Blizzard of '93.
Yeah, and I do think, Peter, the point you were making, that if the same storm hits Monday night, I know you guys are keeping an eye on at least a snow event could happen Monday into Tuesday. Probably not going to be Blizzard 93 just because historically it probably is not going to be. But for example, city of Syracuse, now you can go online and see how they're tracking their plows, what streets they've been on, what do they still need to get to. So nobody goes uncovered in terms of being dug out. I think there's been yet another generation of advancement, let alone the precision of forecasting and the micro communication level that we all have, where almost the last thing people would do now would be turn on their television to get that broadcast information when you can text and app and everything else. I mean, so Jim, those are good. You have other questions, Jim? First, we can have the panel take them.
Well, I am interested in Wayne's take on, because I think it's a really interesting question. Any natural disaster is a horrendous thing to deal with, obviously, but there's something about a snowstorm, and I know Buffalo was a horrendous situation, but it's like if you have enough prep time, you get to the store, you get whatever you need in terms of food, you can wait it out. But a hurricane, you can't wait out. A tornado, I mean, I've covered tornadoes in Texas where there's just no house left. They find somebody's wallet 80 miles away. This was, I don't know, it was horrendous, but it wasn't going to carry quite that wallop on a trauma level, I think, as other, I don't know, Lee or Wayne, other weather disasters, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go. I was just saying, I bet Lee's going to agree. Jim, I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's the thing. I tell people, listen, you might have a bad snowstorm, but when the snow melts, you still got your home. And it's different. It is different when you're talking about hurricane or tornado. I mean, that is your true disaster.
Well, listen, isn't that the appeal of the Northeast? I mean, okay, maybe we don't get these, these balmy winters, but we get a wide variety of things, but maybe not, the worst case scenarios. Now that's kind of shifted a little bit. And obviously down here, Sandy was the largest natural disaster in our tri-state area. And, one of the great things that is sheltered about being in central New York is, you're of course lack of exposure to the Atlantic, and that was loss of life, homes, changed our infrastructure. It's a totally different thing, and it also speaks to the type of tone that as meteorologists we tend to have in storms like that. Where we have that sense of urgency, and obviously it's gonna maybe paralyze the community for a period, but you're not in this like, okay, this is life or death, most of the time. That's different.
Yeah, that is a big difference. And there is something, if I could have a winter with 2 or 3 pretty good snow events, like a foot plus in Syracuse on a weekend, it's kind of cozy. It's winter. It's pretty.
Yes.
You can enjoy it. You can take a walk. There's that serenity. There's that, you take the dog out or walk around your neighborhood, and there's never a more quiet time of year than after a snowfall of some depth. It really is quite lovely. What's difficult for Central New Yorkers, even though we're used to it, is the March and April slush and mess and scraping the car one more time. That's what really, that's what kind of can wear on you. And I think why people tend to maybe either go to South Carolina, where Wayne lives now when you're retired, or at least get away for a week or two this time of year. Jim, would you agree with that?
I would, but I left Syracuse 5 months after covering this. I was covering a hurricane on the coast of North Carolina. And, when you're on the 5th floor of a hotel and the room's shaking, you don't turn to the equivalent of Rick Masadi there and crack a joke. You're like, gee, I really hope I hope the storm moves through and the building's still standing that I'm in. And there was never that sense, like all our reminiscing now is coded to some degree in some humor about getting through this storm. But there wasn't this sort of sinister element to it that you find sometimes covering what is a real natural disaster in other parts of the country.
Speaking of humor, look at this.
Oh. There's a handsome man.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I could do no, it just doesn't, I don't know. I don't have a prop. I need something to put something up here. And, I think I might be wearing that tie tonight. So don't tell anybody that I've had it for 30 years.
Collar's changed a little.
Listen,
the key is you're still there tonight, and that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, Lee, that you got a knack for telling a story there, Lee, and as do everybody that we've been chatting with tonight. It really, it really is something that all of us, and Peter included, you were 1 year away from, not even a full year away from coming into town, and Dave Ryan, who was with us for a while. Somehow we have survived this business for 30 years. Wayne, I know I'm going to give you credit for another 10 and 15 on top of that into retirement, but that's incredible. I mean, we could make a much longer list of people that we know who did 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and did something else. And I think there is a badge of honor in that to some degree, or maybe some other certification medically.
We're certifiable, Matt.
But listen, that 10 o'clock news is coming up. If I'm not there, it'll be Peter doing an hour from that weather alert center.
You can handle it.
So
I'm going to be like Matt. I'm never leaving the desk.
Exactly. I've been like that ever since, even though occasionally they do kick me out.